was another hand up somewhere. No? Yes, Tanya.
Could you just summarize our relationship to Ellen MacArthur?
Ah, okay, very good. So,
and what's about Ellen MacArthur? Because
yes. So yeah, we always start with who is Ellen MacArthur. Ellen MacArthur holds the world record for the fastest human being around the world in a solo sailboat. Twice. She did the record twice. She's a remarkable individual, and out of that experience, she got some very committed sponsors. And she also realized when she was traveling around the world in her boat that she had to manage her resources very carefully. And that's where she got the idea that maybe this was something that could be done on a business basis. So she gave us a call. And she said, I'm starting a foundation where we would like to really start to scale up this reusing of materials. So they came to Hamburg, and Ellen MacArthur, Joss Derriot, Jamie Buttersworth, who's the executive director, Ken Webster, who's the education director, they sat with us for 3 days, and we talked about Cradle to Cradle and what the approach would be. After that, they went back. They internalized all of that, and they adapted it into what they call the circular economy model. And they published, with McKinsey and Company, 3 publications called Scaling Up the Circular Economy. And in those publications, they have examples of how it was scaled up, and many of those examples come from the cradle-to-cradle companies that have been working on this for some years. They also got the attention of the World Economic Forum. And that is how we ended up at the World Economic Forum. So the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has done everybody a really huge favor because they have put this agenda onto the world stage under the name of the circular economy. However, at the same time, our role at the Cradle to Cradle chair has been to work with them on quality assurance to make sure that they get the message right. And this has been an extremely important role because a number of companies were making a few claims that weren't exactly accurate. It wasn't that they were misleading people, it's just that they didn't fully understand the concept. Just to give you one example, in the tire industry, there are some companies that are claiming that they have a technical product that can be used as a service product. So they lease the tires and then they take them back as a technical product and recycle the tires. There's only one problem. A tire is not a technical product. It's a biological product. Why is it a biological product?
Rubber. Rubber.
Yeah, and what happens to it?
It gets consumed.
Sorry?
It gets consumed.
That's it. So, tires get consumed. What the tire industry has been doing for the last 20 years is trying to improve the efficiency of the tire so that it has less noise and it has better fuel efficiency. But in so doing, they've thrown a lot of chemicals in there that are definitely not suitable for the biosphere. So they got the wrong thing perfectly right. So the task at hand is to design the outer part of the tire as a biological nutrient. But they didn't get that message in the beginning. Now they're beginning to get it. That's our role. Our role is to keep them on the right path, and it's extremely important, especially now that it's made its way up to the World Economic Forum, because we keep having to keep their noses in the right direction. So they're doing a lot of things right. There's no question about it. But one of the key things that we're running into, and I'll just tell you straight out, it's very important to see this, is a lot of companies think that if we just do more recycling and business as usual, things will be fine. And that is not fine. And the reason it's not fine is because business as usual and recycling without redesigning the product is getting the wrong thing perfectly right. And the risk is that we build up a whole group of technologies and systems, which they call enabling systems or enabling tools, which are based on the wrong types of materials. And that's, for example, what is happening in a lot of the new materials today where you have composites. So composites are going in exactly the opposite direction right now as these so-called pure materials that we want to get back. That's the challenge that we're facing, is the traditional companies who want to do business as usual, just a little bit better recycling, use the existing infrastructures and optimize them, when our experience in all of these examples that you saw today is you make a lot more money and you get a lot better product if you ask the first question at the beginning, what's the product intended to do for the customer? Not, how can we minimize our environmental impacts? So there's a lot of companies that are still doing that stuff, and we're trying to show them these examples where they can do it the other way. So that is the struggle right now, is trying to bring those two things together, and I expect that that struggle will continue for quite some time. Hopefully we'll win in a positive way. So does that sort of tell the story, Tanja? So we have a very close relationship. I talk with the people at the foundation quite regularly, and right now we're working on a paper together on the defined use of products and defining what we mean when we say materials. So it's a good thing, it's really a great thing that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is doing. I congratulate them for doing what they're doing, and we're the quality control guys who get to say all the unpopular things. So, I don't know how we're doing on time. We're good?
Let's say almost 10 to 5.
Okay. Well, I'm done. But I can go into other things if you like. Yes.
Can I ask another question? What would you say will be the more important, the biological part or the technical part in terms of cradle to cradle, and where do you see the most developments happening at the moment?
Well, if you look at the circular economy, the focus is on technical. There's no question about it. And I really appreciate you asking that question, because the biosphere is not circular. It's continuous loops. The first principle of cradle to cradle is everything is a resource for something else. It's not, by the way, waste equals food, because then people get the idea that you only use waste to do things. You know, that's where you start, but where you really want to have is quality materials that become 100% resources for other things. So it's a continuous series of loops. It is not a closed circle. Why is that important for business? The biggest single barrier today to the so-called circular economy is the psychology of SMEs that they have to take their stuff back. And that's a huge logistics cost for them. And they go, I'm not going to do that. No way. I am not going to pay to get my own stuff back. That's why you have all these expensive systems like Plastic Heroes, which doesn't really work very well, and you know, all of these things. So the important thing is to understand that everything is a resource for something else, because that gives companies a safety valve, because it means that they can open up to innovation and make the materials in their products available to other customers down the supply line. It's a totally different thing. So that's why the circular thing is really misleading. And it was a bit our fault, I have to say, because in the beginning we wanted to have people have the idea of loops, but we should have put a little bit of a more loop to it, which we're doing now. And so the answer to your question is, that's the key. The key is it's continuous loops, it's not closed circle. You do have closed loops in about 10% of the cases in industry where you have high-level intellectual property, something that a company really wants to get back. But in most cases, you know, a vacuum cleaner doesn't become a vacuum cleaner again. It goes on to become a resource for something else. That's why the quality of the materials is important. On the biosphere side, what's important is to start being able to use biological materials for biological materials. Because right now, anything that comes from us is considered hazardous. You know, like human sewage, for example, is considered hazardous and you have to burn it because of all the stuff that's in it. So it's a real challenge to make sure that those biological products can become resources again. And that, I think, is actually a greater challenge than the technical, for sure. The good news is, again, in the Netherlands, companies are leading the way, and not just companies, but quasi-government agencies like the Waterschappen. They are leading the way by extracting phosphate from wastewater, and using it as a slow-release fertilizer, which is really a great product. It's called Crystal Green, manufactured in Canada, I might add. It's started at the University of British Columbia, and it became a spin-off company, and now one of the big engineering companies here has a joint venture with some of the Waterschappen to use it to extract phosphate as a fertilizer. And there's an interesting side benefit. When you take the phosphate out of the water before you process it, you save 15% on your energy to reprocess the rest of the water. So again, by extracting certain materials, you're getting an energy saving in the process. These are very positive moves towards the biological cycle, but it's also very challenging.